Welcome to Kidmin Backstage, the place where we talk about kids ministry and take a peek behind the scenes. We try to share a little bit of what we've learned that works for us and some of our failures so you can avoid them. We release a new episode every Friday, and this is your Backstage Pass to see the magic or disaster that happens behind the scenes of our kids ministry. I'm your host, Gabe Baker, and today I'm joined by Brother Kyle Ringeisen.
Hey.
How's it going?
Brother, I was telling you just a second ago, I'm wore out and tired, exhausted. I'm just prepping and getting no sleep, and every hour of the day I'm trying to do more and more and get things ready to go for Red Bluff. Oh, man.
Well, this is the perfect podcast then.
Yeah.
For that. What's the title? What are we talking about today?
Don't lead from a book.
Don't lead from a book. So I am going to make one disclaimer at the very beginning here. I thought of this after I made the title, but I wanted to keep the title. So we do believe in leading from the Bible.
Yeah.
That book. The book.
Yeah.
So, but we're going to keep the title. So where this comes from is we live in a day and age right now where, I mean, I suppose it's been this way for a while, but like what made me think of this was AI actually. So I've been messing with that. I mess with it for fun, and then I also at work, I'm part of a pilot group working on some AI stuff. And so, nowadays, there's even the school of thought that some people say, like, we don't need to learn half the stuff they teach in school today because you can look it up. And so...
Terrible.
Anyway, we have knowledge at our fingertips, and this podcast is as much for me as anybody else because I am what would be the word? A voracious reader.
That's a big word, brother.
So I read a lot. Yeah. I'm reading 5 books right now. And so, and that's pretty consistent. I'm reading 3 to 5 books at any given time. And so I read seems to be a lot of material. And then the internet and just, again, ChatGPT, whatever, Google, you can look up things and find information. There's podcasts, there's professionals, there's experts.
Right.
And so, it's easy for us to think the secret to leading kids, and having a thriving kids ministry is in the next great book that's released. It's in the next, up and coming podcast, the next website. And there's great ones.
Yeah.
But the thing is knowledge is not what changes lives.
Right.
It's the application thereof. And so kids don't remember, all the stuff we know. They remember what we do. And there's the famous saying, I didn't put it in here, but it's something like people don't care what you know until they know what you care. Or don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
So,
and I do want to say, and I'm a proponent of reading. I think reading leadership books and all these extra books out there in addition to the Bible is important, and gathering insights from other thinkers and people in certain fields. We've talked about several of them in all of our podcasts, but I want to say the best book you can read to get leadership ideas and things that you should do is the Bible, and that's one thing you can't forget. Yes, read all these other books. It's important to do, but don't forget that the Bible is the ultimate book to be reading for leadership guidelines. And then on top of that, you can't just read and contain all this knowledge in your brain and never actually apply it and use it.
Absolutely,
To me, what it actually kind of falls in the line of a lack of faith. So you say that, like, John Maxwell and like all these other leadership people have these great ideas and they're the ultimate leader guru, but you're not actually implementing anything that you read from them. So like, if you were to tell somebody that, like you, for example, because you've read probably every one of his books, I would guess, or close
Almost.
to, and you were to tell somebody that and they were like, okay. And then they were to say something about like one of the things he is a proponent of, and you're like, oh yeah, I don't actually do that though. And then they would probably look at you weird, like, what do you mean? You just said like he's a guru of leadership. You read all his books, but you're not actually implementing anything he's doing. That's just fairly weird. And I think kids will see right through that kind of stuff too. And now we try to teach them the Bible and how to be a Christian and do all these things. But then when we're not actually living it, it kind of, we lose credibility with them, I think.
Knowing without doing doesn't help the kids. It doesn't help anybody. And so that's the first point is like what you just said is reading all these leadership books and great habits books and everything, if we don't apply what we know, then it's a waste of time. I read, so I guess I'll promote a book, but I read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey when I was 12 years old. It's kind of a heavy read, even for an adult, I think. Right. But I read it at 12 years old, and I started reading pretty young. And that book had a huge impact on my life because I applied it.
Right.
And so just kind of quick background on that is I read that book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and this was before the teen one came out.
Yeah.
Because I'm so old, I was 12, but and then I started working really young. My father had a construction company. I started working at 14, and we would meet with these. I think it was an investment group or something. I don't know. I was a young kid. I just liked getting free food, but we would meet at the restaurant once a week, and this one gentleman, he was an architect, I think. He was telling my dad about this planner. Mm-hmm. And he basically forced him to get it. He's like, here, give me your credit card. My dad gives him his credit card. He calls up on the phone. That's how old this is, Yeah. Calls up on the phone and orders him this planner. It's a Franklin Covey planner. Franklin named after Benjamin Franklin, Covey after Stephen Covey. And so it's a Franklin Covey planner. And so my dad got one. I ended up getting one. They were so expensive. I think it was like $300 or something. It was crazy expensive. And it's this big, bulky thing. It's like, I don't know. It's like, for those not on video, it's probably like mine was, I don't know, 2.5 inches thick and like the size of a mid-sized Bible and had a zipper thing. And then it had, the whole idea of the Franklin Covey planner back then was, you have your mission, like your life, basically your mission. And then from there you back up like how many ever years, and then a year, and then quarter, month, week, day, and today's tasks,
Wow.
So that the whole idea is today's task, somewhere in today's task is reflecting your mission. Mm-hmm. Okay. So that was a long explanation, but that's why it impacted my life so much, is because I applied it. And there's still some things to this day from that. And it's not necessarily just the 7 habits themselves, but just the outlook and some of the thought. There's some of those things that I implement still to this day.
Right.
Because it made such a huge impact.
Yeah, there, all those books that are available out there and ideas and thoughts, and especially in the apostolic world now, there's so much more and more stuff coming out. In the Bible especially, there's just so many good things in there that can make a strong impact, not on just your life, but other people's lives. But if we're not actually applying anything we're reading, it does nobody good. And the reason that stuff even exists, the Bible says that it was written for our admonition, so to make us better, to make us stronger, and to help other people too. And, recently there was a person I ran into, and actually they've been to a couple of services just recently, but they hadn't been in a while. And I'd worked with this person quite a bit. I hadn't seen him in a long time. And I kind of handle people differently depending on who they are. And sometimes I'm a little bit more laid back and soft with them, try to be a little bit more gentle. Sometimes I'm a little bit more, aggressive and stuff. But this particular individual, I'd done the little kid gloves for a long, long time, tried to be very gentle with them because they're, kind of sensitive, to be honest with you. But recently I ran into them out at Big Five, and right in front of everybody in God's creation, I laid into him hard, like real hard. Because I'm like, nothing being soft with him is not helping him at all. I need to be just straight up. And I said, I'm not trying to hurt your feelings, I'm not trying to upset you, but I just got to keep it real. Yeah. And he's talking about, I'm helping all these people, and I'm leading them to Jesus. And I said, so what you're telling me is you're leading them to the water, and then when you get there, you're not drinking of the water. So why would anybody that you lead to the water that you're not drinking of want to drink from it either?
Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense. And so, like I was just saying a little bit ago, it's like we have all these options and things available. We talk to kids. I definitely do, about certain things they can read from the Bible, especially chapters and books, and tell them about all this stuff. But then if we're not actually doing any of that stuff that we're reading or that we're telling them
Yes.
about, it's like, why would they want to have anything to do with it?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I tell my kids all the time, I said, there's so much value in reading physical books, but if they never see me pick up a book, they're like, well,
Yeah.
I'm not going to pick up a book either. That's just silly. And so if we want to really see kids headed in the right direction, we actually have to follow through with the
We have
things
to lead by example.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's, one of the things I wrote down is that the knowledge that we can get, it's great, it's fantastic, but stuck in our heads doesn't do any good. And even to like what you said, it helps us, but then to expand that.
Right.
And I'm not the best at that. I am one that can be like, I can look at stuff and try to say, okay, and I do believe it starts with ourselves, but
Right.
I could be kind of focused on like, okay, how do I make myself better? But we need to be able to look out and how
Right.
can I share this and how can I help someone else implement, like even people, the kids, but also people like on our team, if you're
Right.
in any kind of leadership position, to be able to share more than just like sharing a link to a podcast. I mean, that's cool too. That's great.
Right.
But to be able to share, like there's Brother Aaron, who's been on the podcast several times. We will share links and stuff back and forth, but sometimes he'll ask me something kind of more specific and we'll have great conversations.
Right.
And so that's, as a leader, if we can share that and say and show, like, here's how you can implement some of this knowledge, some of
Right.
these things, these principles that you have learned about.
Well, that's an interesting thing too that just kind of came to my mind as you were talking, is like, I think sometimes as a leader you get in this place where you're worried about somebody replacing you. And so you have all this knowledge, ability, and things, and you almost hold back and don't share it because, well, I don't want to tell somebody how to do this because if they're able to do it and it's not just me that's able to do it, then maybe they're going to replace me. Or you get in this little weird spot, I think, and it, like we've talked about it before. There's so much value in getting somebody trained up and teaching them the things that
Yes.
because what happens if you get sick? What happens if you get hurt and nobody else knows how to do any of that stuff that you've been holding on to for years because you're so scared about sharing it with people?
Yeah. That's the insecure leader.
Yeah. And so it's like all that stuff you're learning, that you're reading, especially like you, because you immerse yourself in this stuff so much, sharing with somebody else has so much value to it because we need more than just Brother Gabe to know how to like do the screens for the titles for messages or to help create scripts in Sunday school or to run Sunday school. I remember when you got hurt, when you decided to try to be Superman off the ladder.
Yes.
and Brother Gabe never bows out, like, ever. I mean, he's been sick, hacking along, like puking, and still hangs in there. But like, you were so hurt, like he just was like, hey, I just got to go.
I ended up leaving early. Yeah.
So he left early, and like, if you hadn't been the type of leader that shares the knowledge that you have with us, we would have been in so much trouble. And I'll be honest, that was probably one of the better Sunday schools we had in a while. Not because you weren't there.
Because I got out of there.
But,
I got out of the way.
It's just one of those things where we had that ability to step up only because as a leader you were willing to share the knowledge that you are gathering on your own with us. If you hadn't, we'd have been in so much trouble.
Well, and I think probably all of us can relate to that statement you made that, in the workplace or whatever is like, it feels kind of cool to be the only one that knows how to do something.
Right.
But I've talked about this so much, it's kind of a candy stick, I guess, but I believe that the best leaders are the ones that make themselves dispensable.
Yep.
Because the leaders that make themselves dispensable become indispensable. And that's on a macro level. If you have somebody in the company or the church or whoever that has some brains and can really see the big picture,
Right.
when they see you constantly replacing yourself, you're the last person they're going to get rid of. Even if you don't have a position anymore, technically,
Right.
because you train somebody else how to do it, they see the value, and so they're not going to get rid of you.
Because they can see that you have the kingdom in mind.
Yes.
You don't have that tunnel vision that all you see is you and what's in front of you, and you don't see anybody else there. And that's a huge mistake. We can't do everything that God wants us to do and create the type of church or the Sunday school or the impact that he wants us to have by ourselves. It's never been that way.
And if you can, I put this in a class recently. I said something along these lines. If you can accomplish your vision by yourself, your vision is too small. You're thinking too small.
100%. Noah did not build the boat by himself.
Yeah, exactly.
Took his entire family to work together to get it done. And we will never accomplish what God wants us to do with the kingdom on our own. And so we need to share that knowledge we have with everybody.
Yes.
And then knowledge is power, but only when we share that with everybody and we actually follow through and do what we say we believe and what we're teaching.
I read something about knowledge and wisdom. And so like I think that the loosely a good definition is that wisdom is applied knowledge. So and there's a great saying. It's knowledge is knowing that tomato is actually a fruit. Wisdom is knowing that you don't put tomatoes in fruit salad.
That just strikes me as like a dad joke or something.
Yeah, probably.
It's so funny.
But
that's so funny.
Yeah, so let's move to the next part of this is action. And so this is kind of we're bouncing all over this, but action. I was thinking about this. I can't remember even what it was, but there's sometimes when I have been. It's been more than once, where I'm like in the middle of. I am doing something, actively doing a big project, or like Heart of Christmas, or something, or building a Sunday school set, or whatever. And I'm always up for somebody, having pointers or feedback. I'm always up for that. Never do I shut that down. But it's funny how there's certain people sometimes that it's almost like I don't know if they want to sound smart or if they just come off that way. But where they have looked up, Googled stuff or whatever, like it's almost like they're saying, what you should do, because this is what they do over at this big church. Yeah. What you should do is this, and I'm like, no, what I should do is just keep working because I'm actually getting it done. It's and so I think that what actions speak louder than words. And so I do think that there's merit to people that just roll up their sleeves and get in there and start doing it. And sometimes they're not doing it perfectly. Right. But they're jump in and get it done. And then there's those that can sit back. It's like the man in the arena, Theodore Roosevelt. They sit back and they can critique because they've, Googled it or read about it and know like the perfect way that you're supposed to do it, but they've never picked up a hammer.
They'll fill that suggestion box to overflowing.
Oh man!
But then if you're ever to go, be like, okay, well then you want to help me get this? We'll do that. Let's make it happen. I'll put you in charge. Oh well, no, I wasn't saying like I would do it. I was just like suggesting maybe. Like your way's perfectly fine. I was just kind of throwing it out there. Oh, okay.
All of a sudden,
all of a sudden you don't really think that idea is that good, and so those people, I tell you, just love you to death if that's how you are. But nothing wrong with having ideas, but like...
Yeah. Oh, and like I said, I'm all for, like when we started this podcast, there were many, many ideas that people were like, you should do this, you should do that. And some of them were really great, and I tried to do some of it. But... it's kind of funny, and man, I'm tentative when I say stuff like this because I want people to give me feedback. Yeah. And I don't want them to think that I'm secretly thinking they're an idiot or something, because I'm not. But it's interesting that when someone steps out and does something, I've been guilty of it. Yeah. Someone steps out and does something, like they start a venture. Right. You have the suits and so the menswear. Yep. It could be like, well, you know what, Brother Kyle, what you should do is you should do this. You should get these kind of suits. You should get, I saw this company that did this, And so
I have had a lot of that. There's these shirts that I really like. And they do this, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that's... Yeah. You know how many people wear that type of shirt? Probably just you. Yeah. But great idea. Yeah, I try to be nice and stuff. And there is some good ideas. One thing that I think if you're that kind of person that has all these ideas, at least the way our pastor is, I've gone to him with ideas before, and he says, okay, well, what's your plan?
Yes.
And if you're like, oh, I don't really have one, well, that's not really a good idea then. If it's a good idea, you need to have a plan in place so that way you can actually implement that idea.
How would you put this idea?
How would you make it happen?
Yeah.
And so if you're that kind of person, then we're not trying to discourage all these ideas, but maybe write down a little bit of a plan. So if you do say, hey, brother so-and-so, I have an idea for how to maybe make our Sunday school better, or like to start doing outreach. Okay, well, what's the plan? Then you already have that. It's like, here's my plan. This is what I think should happen. And actually like do it. Because I think writing that plan out kind of almost forces you in a way to like, okay, then I'm actually going to do this, as opposed to just writing down a random idea and
thought.
then never. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. I think it's Nun Bushnell, I think is the name. I love this quote. He said, anybody who has ever taken a shower has had an idea. But it's the one that gets out and dries off and does something about it that changes the world.
Yeah.
So I think that's key is like what you just said about writing down an action plan and then going out and implementing it.
Yep.
And here's the thing, and I have a note in here that trying new ideas gives us confidence, helps us grow. But I just thought of something is when you start implementing ideas, when you have read something, you're like, I'm going to implement that.
Right.
What it does is, for one thing, it makes you accomplish things, but it also gives you kind of a barometer, because you start to understand how ideas, implementing them, works.
Right.
And so then sometimes I'll read something, or more often I'll get a suggestion, like or Sunday school, like, oh, maybe we should do this. And I can immediately like, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
Because I've been in the trenches.
Right.
I've tried to do it. And I just know, and well, why not? Well, like my kids, might say like, well, why wouldn't that work? And it's like, well, it's, maybe we could get down in the weeds and explain why it doesn't, but I just know that it's not going to work. Because there's too many variables, or whatever the situation might be,
Well, and the other thing too I was just thinking about is like, as a leader, you can't be afraid to do something like that idea or actually follow through with it because you're afraid of like failure or not working.
Yes.
Because the only way to come up with better ideas and really become successful is to fail sometimes. And so if you're not actually following through with some of these things you're reading or these plans that you have in your mind because you're afraid of failing or because you don't want to mess up, like that's the wrong way to go. I think, at least for me, when I see somebody in leadership that's willing to like step out and do something that's outside of their comfort zone, or just like do it, and they might mess up a little bit here and there along the way, but they're willing to actually step up and do something. I have great respect for that. We don't always know exactly every detail about a certain idea or thought, but it's like, I'm just going to do it, come up with a good plan, and then try to implement it. And if it doesn't work out, I'll take what doesn't work and remove that and try to fix it and make it better. And that's how we got to where we are right now in our Sunday school. It wasn't always like this. It was trying little things here and there. All that didn't work out very well, so we're not going to do that again. And then trying something different, try this in a different way, and it's all those little failures along the way that bring you to this ultimate success and where we are.
Don't be I like that. Don't be afraid. I almost said scared. Don't be scared. Don't be afraid of failure. The fear of failure stops a lot of people from accomplishing things. And we want to try to mitigate mistakes, but what was that you and I that talked about, if your last failure was like you had to reach back to high school,
right?
Then you're not pushing hard enough.
Yeah, you really haven't been trying much, because I could count on, it'd probably take me 2 hands to count the amount of times I failed in the last 2 weeks. Just because.
Well, that's too much, brother.
No, it's just trying new things, and a lot doesn't work out, and then I've never ran a clothing company before and never done that kind of stuff. And it's like, I thought this idea would work. And along the way, as I've gotten to where I am now, it's like learning little things along the way and talking to people that are in the field, and like, they'll have ideas, but it's not exactly the same type of company that I have. It's slightly different and different demographics. So maybe what works for them doesn't work for me, but I still tried a little bit and then tweak their little idea and method, and then it's just like, but it's those little failures along the way that ultimately get you. I mean, if you see any big organization, any big church, and you talk to the leadership in those places, and they would tell you along the way to get to where we are now, there was all kinds of little mess ups and mistakes and failures. I mean, we almost went bankrupt, and I mean, all these different things. If you read stories about a lot of these major companies, you'll see one common denominator is along the way. It didn't go from initial investment to like multi-million-dollar company without some failures in between, or almost completely closing up shop. And
yeah, it takes the effort and learning from mistakes. So the last kind of note that I wrote is impact comes from what we do, not what we plan. And of course we've stomped all over this. But when we have like the best plan, the best strategy, and I'm a planner, so I can fall into this trap. I'm one that likes to plan and outline and schedule, and I mean I kind of do it for a living. And so, but if we could have the best plan, and then like I'll just say this, like in my work, schedules are a big deal and milestones and all of this. And so there are some contractors that might get involved or consultants that get involved, and they're in the private sector and they're not maybe used to a stringent schedule.
Right.
And so like in the first week it gets blown apart. Often schedules get blown apart. In the first week it gets blown apart because they basically didn't pay attention in the meeting, or they basically 100%. Aren't looking at the schedule. It drives me nuts because I know that we're not going to accomplish the goal. And sometimes there's deadlines that are major, they have to do with government session, and some of these things, like if the project doesn't get completed by this date, it will not get completed.
Well, yeah, because the other thing too with your job is like if it doesn't fall in this year's budget and we don't finish it within this year's budget, next year's budget, you have to resubmit an entire brand new plan. It's all starting from scratch, basically. Yes. Now, I've been in the military and working for the government for a while. I remember that, and it was just like you see people get so frustrated. Like, no, we need to finish this right now, because if we don't, next year we'll have to resubmit everything, start over from the beginning, and I can imagine how frustrating that would be.
Yeah, so if you have this whole schedule and these milestones, and you can spend a lot of time, and I spend a lot of time on those. You spend a lot of time on it, outlining it and getting it all prepped, and then it gets blown apart because nobody's paying attention, then it's like a complete waste.
Right.
And so that, I think that's kind of on a different line, in work and stuff. But I think with our kids ministries, we can outline, the perfect bus ministry, the perfect outreach plan, the perfect script. But if we don't follow through with action, if we don't apply some of these plans, and then going back to leading from a book, if we don't, we should read. We should read these books. I think it's very good. Some people listen. A lot of people listen now, and that's fine. But then turn around and apply it,
Right.
Because, like, if you read, I read a lot. I'm mostly digital now. I had a huge library. Now it's all pretty much on my phone.
Yeah.
But I was never one that really wrote in the margins very much and stuff.
Yeah.
I liked the idea, but I just never did.
Yeah, I'm not that way.
In fact, when I got I got a book from Pastor once, and he had written all kinds of notes in it, and that was kind of neat to see his notes and stuff. But if we can, like, I do write stuff down, I use Google Keep, write it down and make notes, and then review those and figure out how to implement some of that stuff.
Right.
That's powerful.
Oh, big time. And then the other thing, too, is I was thinking of it with one of these bullet points that you have under here where it says teams respect leaders who step up and take action.
Yeah.
It reminded me of being in the military. We had this whole concept of leading from the front. So you have these people in leadership positions, officers, and we always as a soldier, as an enlisted soldier, which for those who don't know, familiar with the military, you have enlisted, which is, your privates and sergeants and those guys that are kind of on the ground really getting stuff done, and then you have your officers, which are more like the planners of the mission, and they'll be leaders in like your missions and stuff like that, but they're not the physical like grunts and stuff. So we have these lieutenants that are right out of college. They don't even go to the military type of training. They're just fresh out of college with all these cool ideas. And there's nothing that a soldier hates more than one of those guys that just leads, but then as soon as things get crazy, they're like, where's Officer so-and-so? Oh, they're gone. Where'd they go? They tucked tail and ran, and they're not, they're not wanting to get into the middle of something crazy. And so nothing was better for us than when we saw that particular officer getting right up there with us, getting their hands dirty.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'm not going to ask you to do anything I won't do.
Yes.
I'm not going to instruct you in a direction. Well, I'll be leading the charge, so to speak. And I think about this. He was a colonel at the time, and retired General Hal Moore, pretty famous military leader, led people into Vietnam. And he had a statement. He was the first one on the ground. His boots were the first one to touch down, and he would be the last one to leave.
Oh,
he
wow.
would not leave until every single one of his soldiers was either, flown out on helicopters alive or flown out on helicopter. He wouldn't leave any body. I mean, he literally had guys going into the middle of the woods to retrieve people that he knew wasn't alive anymore, because that was his commitment to his guys. And every single one of them testified. You can read all kinds of quotes from soldiers that he led into battle that, like I said, they had so much respect for him, and they would be willing to do anything that he wanted them to, because he was willing to be leading from the front, action first. Like everything he said to do, he would do it himself as well. Right there with him. And I think for those of us in leadership positions, and those of us, especially in Sunday school with kids, especially those kids that are coming off the bus that don't really have strong leaders in their life, they will respect you so much if you don't only just say what you believe, but actually like do it and actually lead from the front and be, up there with them when we're worshiping, up there with them when we're praying, and getting involved with them, and all that stuff means so much to them.
Yeah, it goes back to the simple saying, actions speak louder than words. Kids don't remember, or maybe even know. I mean, they might see through some stuff, but they don't remember your intentions, your good intentions. They remember the experiences that they had in Sunday school. They remember the experience they had when you took the time to pray with them, when you sat down next to them, asked them, hey, what's going on? That's what they remember. They don't remember that you're like, man, I care about you guys so much. I was up last night praying for you guys. Well, that's great, but let's see it in action. You know?
And I seen that this morning. And so before church, I'm up there in pre-service practice. I look down and I see a bunch of kids surrounding my brother-in-law, Brent, and he's in Sunday school pretty much every week. And there was probably, I don't even know, 6 or 8 kids that are surrounding him, just talking to him. And that has everything to do with, because when he's in Sunday school, he's outside of his comfort zone. He's outside of who he would normally be. He's being goofy with them. He's interacting with them. He's doing all these kinds of things, worshiping with them.
Him.
I mean, and they love him so much. And it's even outside of Sunday school, they're going up to him in church, and it's just like you can just see the impact that what he's doing has on them, and that's all through actions.
Yes,
like he can say everything he wants to, but it's his actions that are causing that relationship to be what it is.
Yeah. Well, let's do a recap really quick. So, knowing without doing doesn't help kids. Doesn't help anybody. Doesn't help your team. So if you don't apply, some of the things that you
knowledge
learn.
and wisdom.
Yes,
I'm gonna remember that.
Yes, applied knowledge. Wisdom is applied knowledge. And then action builds strong leaders, stronger leaders. So take action. Ideas are a dime a dozen. Everybody's taking a shower. Is that
Be willing
idea?
to take a risk.
Yes. And then impact comes from what we do, not what we plan.
Lead from the front.
It's great to plan, but you got to lead from the front. You got to dive into it and do something about it.
Get your hands dirty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's a wrap.
All right. Yeah. So this part.